Lisa Zeiderman of Miller Zeiderman Law has built an uncommon law practice. She has over 50 employees. It's a very, very successful law firm. And the way she did it may surprise you. Tune in and learn. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have an incredible guest with me here today. Lisa Zeiderman built a substantial law firm in Manhattan, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in New York.
Manhattan and Westchester, correct?
Manhattan, Westchester. The law firm's been in existence for 12 years. You have over 50 employees now, over 20 attorneys. You do incredibly well. This is a very uncommon success in the field, period. You very rarely run into a family law firm that has over 20 lawyers, and in that short of a span of a time. First of all, congratulations on your success.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Second of all, as I mentioned before we hit the record button, people who listen and watch this podcast are small law firm owners, and you could teach them a great deal about how you did it. So the stage is yours.
All right. So it's a big stage to fill. But we'll go through it. So I would say that for me, there were probably two reasons for success, maybe three. One is that it was really important and critical that we do great work for our clients, because most of our business is built on referral business. So that was incredibly important, that the quality of the work product that we put out is not just good, but excellent, that we are super prepared and super responsive to our clients, particularly in a field like family law, because really people are coming to you at the most difficult times in their life. Mm-hmm. They are either concerned about their children or their finances or both, and nothing could be more stressful for those people. The second thing I think in terms of building our business, what created our success, are the people who actually work with us in our business. And that would be the attorneys, the paralegals, the back office staff, all of those people who are truly hardworking, devoted, and want to succeed themselves and want our firm to succeed, and who really feel part of the whole process, and making sure that we really hire people and motivate people and incentivize people and mentor people who want to be part of the culture of our firm. And I think defining that culture for us was a very big part of that, because at the beginning of our practice, when we had first started, I don't think we knew who we necessarily were as a culture, but our culture developed, and it's quite clear at this point, in my mind at least, and I think in my employees' mind as well, what the culture of our firm really is. And then I think we have the third component, which you and I talked about a bit before we got on, which is the fact that we, as partners, really don't deal with the back office. So we're not the ones who are dealing with the bookkeeping or the accountant or the bank or the rental of the leases, etc. We have someone, luckily my husband, Lloyd, who deals with all of that and deals with the back office, so that we can really work with our clients, work with our paralegals and our attorneys, and focus on the business portion of what we do. So I think that's really what has contributed to our success.
Got it. So those three factors, um, and Lloyd is a whole different story. And I will make sure that we touch on Lloyd and how he has contributed to your business. Obviously, revenue or growth requires quite a bit of revenue. And you said that you and your partner Fate are the chief rainmakers at your law firm. How did you learn to become a rainmaker? Because it is a fairly uncommon skill for lawyers. Most would rather focus on legal work than going out there and generating that demand.
So in my background, I would say I have two parts of my background which made this kind of a natural for me. So first, I had my own business in the first instance when I was very young. I was probably in my early 20s when I actually had a business in the fashion industry and had a showroom on Seventh Avenue representing young designers and marketing their product to major retailers across the country as well as specialty stores. So I was working in a people business from the very beginning and dealing with negotiation and markdown money and all of those not so wonderful things that people deal with in the fashion business. And I really learned how to work with people because that was a people business in every way, shape, or form. You're working with designers who are very sensitive about their product. You're working with retailers who need to report to their bosses and make sure that it's profitable for them. You're trying to deal with returns and goods being late and China having issues getting it shipped and all of those kinds of things. So that's all part of making a business successful, and that takes skill. So I would say that that's the first part of it in terms of networking, rainmaking, et cetera, right? Because you still have to be able to cold call those people. You have to be able to get yourself out there. And that's something that is a natural, frankly, for me. I would say the next part of my career, or not my career, but I was married the first time before I married Lloyd. And my former husband was a partner in a firm. And we did a lot of socializing and entertaining, et cetera, of his clients and learning the skills in terms of what he was doing as a rainmaker. And he was a young rainmaker at the time and who did very well for himself. And so, as his wife and being supportive, I was part of that. And so, all of these were kind of natural skills for me at that point. And when I started my business, I already had clients who I was able to bring with me from the firm that I had been with, where I was employed, because those clients were following me, and they followed me because I was doing great work for them. I would respond on the weekends. I would respond when I was on vacation. They were not going to not follow me. They wanted me to represent them. And so it's not like I opened my business and I had no clients. When we opened our business, we were ready to go. We had clients, we had a base, we had a referral base, we had a book of business essentially. And so, we weren't starting out on day one with zero. And I think that that's a big part of it as well.
Mm. Just to make sure that I understood you correctly, when you said that that was natural to you, rainmaking was natural to you, was it natural to you because you were born this way, or was it natural to you because of the fashion business that you had on Seventh Avenue, and then the support that you provided to your ex-husband now, who was in the business, who was doing a lot of business development and client entertainment, et cetera, et cetera?
I think that rainmaking is not necessarily all skill. I think some of it is innate. I think that some of it you have to have, right?
Hmm.
You have to be able to go into a room and have a conversation. You have to be an interesting person. You
It
aren't going
helps.
to go into a room and talk about law, okay? You need to be able to talk about art and fashion and travel and have a somewhat interesting life. And I think that people are sometimes attracted to that, right? And so I think that part of it is an ability really to socialize, okay? To talk about yourself, to talk to others and learn about them, and to be able to interact with others. There are people who can't do that. That's not
Yeah,
a skill that I don't lack.
I get that. I think one of the major rules of marketing is don't be boring.
Exactly. I think that's true. I think that's just a skill that is a good skill to have. Generally, don't be boring.
Don't be boring. So, and if you're listening to this podcast or watching this recording and you're thinking, oh, what if I am boring? Read some books not about law, travel some, meet some interesting people, build some stories to tell. Within a year or two, you will not be boring. You will have plenty of stories to share. And yeah, that's such an interesting point. Now, the second point, or the second part of your success formula was attracting the right people to the law firm. Is that also that something that kind of naturally came to you? Was it, or was it something that a muscle that you had to develop? And if you did, how did you develop that muscle?
So that was definitely a muscle that had to be developed.
Okay.
I think that that was probably the most difficult part of running our business was to find and keep great people. I think that we had very high expectations of what people should be able to do, basically what we did, right? That they should all be like us. And and I think that we brought certain people to the firm at the very beginning. Some are still with the firm and they're fabulous, and obviously they were keepers, right? And some we had to let go. And I think you also have to know when it's time to let someone go, because I think that that's another piece of running a firm. You have to know when it's not a good fit, and everybody needs to be able to cut their losses at that point. So I think we learned a little bit about the culture that we wanted to create. And that culture, maybe to some degree, was created by, just maybe just being okay. And right,
I
we
get that.
created a culture. We're hardworking people. We expected hard work. We expect that there's going to be drive and initiative and a thought process and a zeal to learn, to know the law, to make sure that you can present and articulate the law to a judge, to be able to be in a negotiation and to know what the actual facts of a case are. That's so important. And you can't imagine how many people show up for meetings, court appearances, etc., who are not prepared with the information. And so that was not acceptable to us on any level. And I think we also understood that we needed to mentor people better. We needed to make sure that they weren't overworked, but that they were rewarded for working hard.
Hmm. When you
And I
say,
think that's really what we did.
listen, when you say working hard, can you define what working hard means in your law firm?
Yeah, so it may mean working at night. It may mean working on the weekends. It may mean that you're preparing for a trial and you're there, 12-hour days. That is all very possible. But on the other hand, we are very generous in terms of vacation time for our employees. Our attorneys, actually, I have a policy where our attorneys can take as much vacation as they really want, as long as their work is done and as long as they are responsive to our clients. And that may mean picking up a phone call on a vacation, sending an email. I have one of my partners is on a vacation now, and she's been answering emails in the morning and later in the day. And I certainly am responsive when I am away. People actually in the office say I'm too responsive because I am actually bothering them. They say more when I'm away than I am when I'm there. Of course, I don't have the court appearances for the day, so I can be even more responsive, right? But I think that you need to be able to balance it. But that there's that word, and I will say this: work-life balance, which I'm
Hmm.
not a big believer in. I think there's a new word out there that I heard a couple of weeks ago, which I really like, which is workplace harmony, which means that almost everything works together
Hmm.
in your life. And I think this goes back to rainmaking in some ways, right? A lot of my interests focus on areas that I'm also work best with what I do in terms of my practice. So, for example, I'm very interested in helping women in terms of financial abuse, in terms of financial literacy. But that's because I also see women come into my practice so often as clients who don't have that control of their finances, or they don't have the ability to know what the tax return actually means. And so one of the boards that I serve on as board chair, actually, Savvy Ladies, is devoted to women's financial literacy. Well, that works in with what I do on a daily basis. So I'm not out there choosing something that just doesn't work at all with what I do. It
Hmm.
all works together. Another board I'm on, Family Legal Care, helps pro se litigants advocate for themselves in the court system, in family court. Again, something I'm really passionate about, but something that works with what I do. So I think that you have to kind of figure out what you're interested in and then make your life kind of work together.
That is a very interesting point. My business partner and I, we are firm believers in work-life balance, but we're not in the legal field. It is a little different. Neither one of us is a practicing marketing service provider, although we operate a marketing company. But you and Faith, your partner, are practicing attorneys. You're managing partners and you're practicing attorneys. And both of you are chief culture creators, chief culture keepers. So rainmaking, practicing law, managing the law firm. But you also have a secret weapon that you have mentioned, and that is your husband, Lloyd. And I think this is just before we hit the record button. You told me that, and this is the way that I interpret it, he's your secret weapon. He's behind the scene, and he made so much of this happen. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about Lloyd
Sure.
and the role that he has, the unofficial role that he has in your law firm, and how he helped you get to where you are.
So I would say that Lloyd is definitely my secret weapon in probably all parts of my life. He is a huge supporter of what we do. And more than that, he is very hands on. So while my partner and I actually run our business in terms of the legal portion of our business, working with our paralegals, working with our attorneys, our partners, et cetera, obviously our clients, being in court, being on the ground, making sure that the cases are run and that they're run well. Lloyd is actually managing everything that is the business side of the office. Meaning from day one, when we were setting up the firm, he was the one who was building out the space, making sure that the construction was getting done, making sure that the banking was all set up, the computers were set up. And when we walked in, literally on that Saturday, and came in to make sure that we could get ourselves going for Monday, because we already had clients that had followed us from the other firms. It was all done. The office space was done. The computers were working. That is a huge, huge asset to any firm. So that on Monday morning, when everybody reported to work, we were ready to go. And from there, he was really the vision in terms of how to build out the firm. So, Lloyd has had various businesses, including his own business management firm in both Hollywood and New York. He did that for many, many years. He built a very successful business, about 200 people, and then has been a real estate developer, took a company public, did a lot of different things. But he has been devoted now really to making sure that our business works. And so if there's a banking situation or we're ready to file taxes or any of these things that go on a day-to-day basis, he's the person that is dealing with those particular things. He certainly goes through us and makes sure, because we're the owners of the company, that it's fine. But ultimately, it's his vision in terms of what we're doing. So, I gave you the example when we weren't recording yet, that various times we've built out our space. And each time we've built out our space, we have said, we don't need more space. We don't need more conference rooms. We don't need that extra floor. And he is the one who has said, you will, and you need to deal with it now. You can't deal with it when everybody is overcrowded and you don't have any conference rooms. What are you going to do? They're going to be standing out in the street. And what will you do? And I remember actually, and I'll tell you a funny story. So we had a third partner at one point, and he was trying to teach the third partner how to move, right? It was literally how to move all of the stuff, the boxes and of documents, etc., the furnishings, all of that into the office space. And it was, I think, a Friday afternoon, and you have to get insurance for the building, and you have to do all this. And Lloyd kept saying to this person, have you done this, and the other thing? And at one point, I remember him saying, the people will be in the street if you don't figure this out. What is the plan here? And but it was true, right? So it's a thought process that I think a lot of lawyers don't have that skill. And I think if you don't have that skill, you need to understand that that's not your skill set, and that's not what you should be spending time on. And yes, we're very fortunate we have Lloyd, okay? But if you don't have Lloyd in your life, you need to hire a Lloyd, because that is the person who you need to be running the business every day. And I do speak to other owners of small businesses, and particularly law firms, and they often say that their time, how do you do everything you do? They want to know. And the answer is, I can do everything I do because I don't do what many of them are spending their days doing, which is to do all that stuff, right? That Lloyd does. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, the bank reconciliations, who's going to run that? Who's going to think about all of these things? Who's going to make sure that that people aren't stealing from you? There is so many parts to this that people don't understand. And if they're doing that, they're not practicing law. And that becomes the problem. And that is that becomes a lack of understanding of what your time is best served doing.
I get that. So Lloyd is in charge of all operations that have nothing to do with actually practicing law.
Exactly.
He is not in charge of rainmaking, but
No.
everything else he takes care of. And this is
That,
such an important point. And this is a weakness that I see in so many law firms where there are partners. And partners do not come with complementary skill sets, but they come with identical skill sets.
that's exactly right. And my partner and I have very identical skill sets, right? We're both strong in court. We're both good with clients. We both can can write. We all of those things, right? But in terms of running a back office, that's not something that we were really skilled to do. He has an accounting background. He can look at a profit and loss statement, to your question. He knows what he has to do. If he doesn't like the way the accountant is doing something, he gets on the phone with the accountant. He may have words with some of the people, right? But the bottom line is that that's his skill set. That's what he knows best how to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that you need to, if you're running a firm, you need to spend the money, frankly, to make sure that you have someone doing this, because it's not a smart use of your time.
So true. I think, and this is not a perfect analogy, but when I think about military, most people don't know this, but in our military, 10% of the military is fighting force, 90% are support to the 10%. That 10% cannot be effective unless they have the other 90%. It just doesn't work. It just does not work. You have to have that support structure. So this is going back to this point that if you do not have a partner in your law firm that has a very strong business operations background, you need to have someone. Either bring them on as a partner or bring them on as an operations manager, practice manager, someone who understands the marketing piece of the puzzle. Because most lawyers are not great rainmakers, maybe 2-3%, maybe. Right? So if you're not a great rainmaker, you need to have someone who understands marketing well enough. You need someone who understands operations, HR well enough, all of those things. Just incredibly, incredibly important. Yeah, super, super interesting. Who's in charge of HR? Are you and your partner in charge of HR?
No, Lloyd.
Lloyd is in charge of HR.
Lloyd, we have a person who actually handles HR, but they report to him.
Got it. So he's in charge of HR. We talked about him being in charge of your P&L, profit and loss statement. He works with your financial person, accountant, CPA, bookkeeper, all of those people. So he really operates the business other than the rainmaking / marketing and the service that the law firm provides.
Yeah, I mean, we do everything that is legal. We do the marketing. We do all of that, but he is really all the parts that you don't see on an everyday basis. So if somebody needs to negotiate that lease with the landlord, that's definitely Lloyd. If somebody needs to deal with whether we're going to have heat on the weekends in the office, that's Lloyd. If somebody needs to negotiate the storage, for the boxes, that's going to be Lloyd, right? All of that is, and he's not necessarily doing each one of those things, but he's going to be instructing other people to
He's in
do it.
control.
Some of it he will do, frankly, because he will just do it. And so, he's the one who speaks to the accountant. He's the one who will meet with the landlords. He does all of that because that's his strength.
Yeah.
And I go back to this: don't do what you're not strong doing. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I definitely recommend, as you're listening to this and you're looking at your mental org chart, and if you do not see a Lloyd, if you do not see someone who has strong business background, you need to get that person into your org chart, because that could be one of the reasons why your law firm doesn't have 50 people working there, because you are distracted with business issues, operational issues all the time. So you're not focused on actually either practicing law or attracting new clients or whatever else required working on the business rather than working in the business on those operations. It's a really, really strong point.
I think that's exactly right, and I think that people are often short-sighted in terms of making sure that they have that particular person. And I don't know that lawyers are the best people to do it. By the way, I think that is something that I think that's not necessarily our strong suit.
Nor should it be, really, if you think about it.
Exactly.
Why should it be? I think there are more. There's a more valuable more valuable way to invest your time into the things that you actually invested your time, energy, and money into developing your skills, being an excellent lawyer.
100%.
And I always say that, I often say that should you choose to become a CEO of your law firm in the real sense, then you should probably give up practicing law, because it's not a part-time job.
No, it's not. At the beginning of the year, I will say, Lloyd said to me, "There's not going to be that much for me to do this year. It seems like it's all just running smoothly." And then all of a sudden, we had all these
Never.
different issues come up. And I said, "Remember when you said you were all like finished?"
He's,
So
he's just
there's
being
always
modest.
issues in a law firm. There's always
Yeah.
issues. And look, when you are 50 people plus, you're going to have different issues that come up. I think the other thing is that one of the things that we learned is you need to hire before you actually need the person. And I think that is another a point. And you need to have a very strong mentoring program, which we do have. We have partners who are mentoring younger associates now. And when we bring in young associates, which we are doing more and more, we are making sure that they are assigned to a partner so that they are learning from that partner, and that we are not in charge of every single person. Yes, we overall certainly supervise, but that person has someone to go to and to work with, and that also alleviates some of the burden on the partner as well, because then they are delegating also. And I think that that's very strong. I just interviewed somebody yesterday for a position, and that was something that was very important to that person when he heard that he would be working with another partner, and that
Hmm.
that would be his mentor, and that this person had already mentored somebody. And I had the two of them speak. The person who had just been mentored and is now in her second year, and this other person who will be coming in his first year. And so we have built our top, and now we are also filling in from bottom up, frankly.
Mm. Did all this knowledge, how to create management layers with all of these programs, did that come from Lloyd as well? Or
So I think some of it came from Lloyd. I'm not
Mhm.
going to give him 100% credit here, because I think some of it came from us actually
Mhm.
seeing what we needed. Certainly he had the vision that you hire before you're at your capacity level, right? And you're not able to function. And very often he would say, as we were going through the years, you need another lawyer. It's better to have an extra lawyer than have, one less lawyer, have an extra paralegal, all of those types of things, right? And that was really important. But I think that we have also seen that mentoring younger attorneys really, before you know it, they're not in their first year anymore. They're in their second year. And that takes a lot of pressure off. And so we started to bring in people who could actually, become rising stars essentially in our firm. And that worked for us. And so we are doing more and more of this.
Mm, super interesting. You also mentioned that you train your attorneys how to go out there and get new business.
We do. So we encourage it. We talk about it. So I do a morning Zoom with all of my attorneys and my paralegals every morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. My team gets on. And, obviously if we're in court or somebody's in court or I'm in court or in a deposition, et cetera, we might not be able to do it every single morning. But generally we do that. And particularly since COVID, which is when we started it, because we worked all the way through COVID remotely, we started to do this, and it became incredibly important for everybody to start to hear about the cases and to hear, what things needed to be dealt with and delegating work and all of that. But everybody's on together. That's the first thing. And everybody is helping everybody. That's the second thing. And that is really an important piece of it. And then this idea that we do encourage our attorneys to be active in bar associations, to write articles, to publish, because I think the more that you're doing this, the more that you're going to get skilled in rainmaking, to go out and, find something that you're passionate about. And we talked about this earlier. You need to be an interesting person. It's not just being in the office. You need to be an interesting person. It was the other day, I was with a client and I can't remember exactly what came up. It was something about art. And it was something about putting together inexpensive pieces and making it into art. And they were using some analogy. And I said, John Chamberlain. And the person said, yes, exactly. Right. Okay. But that's part of being a person, right? Going to a museum, understanding art, being interested in other things besides just law,
Hmm.
going to interesting restaurants, traveling, all of those things. Yes, all of those things are really important because they make you a full human being. And they also are things that you discuss and have in common with clients and other colleagues. So I think that makes you a more well-rounded person. It's not that interesting to talk about law all day long.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, watching this somewhere, and you think, yes, it is, just think about dentists.
Exactly.
You don't know. Be more well rounded. Listen, amazing insights. One of the last questions, if not the last one. Where do you see a law firm 10 years from now?
I am hoping that our partners actually rise to the point of, at some point, really running the firm, and we can take a little bit of a step back from what we're doing, and they can have more of a role of running it and more rainmaking as which they're doing. Going out and getting clients. And, I'm 63 years old. So 10 years from now, I'm going to be 73. There's probably certain parts of what I do that I really love doing and won't want to stop. I love doing the trial work. I love doing a deposition. But I think that they will start to take over, and the firm will evolve with them taking a bigger and bigger role. And that's what's happening now as they're mentoring younger associates. They are building a team.
You've built something very, very special, and your business acumen is incredibly high, like
Thank
incredibly
you.
high. It's very rare that you see it. And I say it openly, and I say it to quite a few faces that, look, in a legal profession, business acumen is not that common. It's just not. So I think that maybe when you step back from some of the roles, maybe you could teach other law firm owners how to just do this, think better about their business, make better decisions. So they would be happier with their law firms. The truth of the matter is, I've talked to many lawyers that do divorce law, and many of them are not very happy people. But here you are.
Yes, no, I'm a very happy
You're a
person.
very happy person.
I
And I
am
think
a
a lot of
very
it comes
happy
from
person.
just being a very well-rounded person and also running a very successful business.
And having a great relationship, right? That I think makes the difference for people, having someone in your life that is truly devoted to you and that you're truly devoted to. So I think that's probably 95% of it.
Yeah, such an important point. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing all the insights.
Thank you.